Hi, first thing first, Adam, thank you so much for taking your time out and joining us on the Growth Mindset podcast. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Irshad. It's so good to be here.
Awesome. Adam, for my listeners who might be hearing you for the first time, would you just like to give them a brief idea about what you do?
I'm Adan Lane Smith, the attachment specialist. I teach people practical tips to repair their relationships. If you have trouble dating, you're in a bad marriage, or if you just don't know how to connect to other people, I give you exact steps to build those relationships so that you have the next 50 years of your life with much better relationships.
Awesome. I mean, I'm definitely excited for this conversation because there are a lot of things that I want to talk about, but I want to start off from the first step, that is attraction and how does this psychology work, right? So first thing first, this is a question that a lot of my folks ask, my friends ask, and a lot of people as well. Can a man and a woman be friends?
My answer is going to make a lot of women very angry until they hear the reason for it. So it is very difficult for men and women, especially single men and single women, to be friends. And the research backs this up because women, if they do not feel an attraction to the man, they assume he has no attraction for her whatsoever. But so many men, if they're single, they are actively looking for some woman in their life to fall in love with. And the closer they get to you, the more they feel like they want to be with you romantically. So they're just waiting, right? They're waiting and they tell themselves, no, it'll never happen. It'll never happen. It'll never happen. And he just quietly swallows down that attraction. And she has no idea this is going on. So every woman out there says, yes, men and women can completely be friends. I have no attraction at all to my male friends. And they say, and they never have attraction for me either. And you look at their male friends and you say, yes, they do. The research backs it up that is absolutely the case. And one more consideration, if you are then in a relationship and the other person is in another relationship, there's not just two of you, there are now four of you that all have to trust all four of you involved. It increases the complication in the relationship, and it makes it so hard to build a trusting system that is never going to fail. If anybody has a bad day or any paranoia or any trust issues at all, makes it much, much harder. So is it possible? Yes. But what are you trading for this? That's a lot of stress.
Exactly. And I think oftentimes it's the men that I've noticed would not, even though they might be attracted, but just because the women said so that, I don't feel that way, or let's just be friends. It's the man who backing out. In that scenario, what do you think men should do if they really like a woman, but for some reason they are just backing out?
I think that men are programmed in most cases to be attracted to women. I think it's natural, and especially a man who's lonely and doesn't have a woman in his life. Is it possible for a man who does have a fulfilling, loving relationship to then also be friends to a woman professionally? Maybe. Yes, that is possible. But if his needs are not met and he feels that lonely, he is really going to be trying. Every part of his brain is going to be trying. The best thing he can do is make sure his needs are getting met. And number two, be fully honest with what he's wanting and expecting instead of just sitting there in the wings waiting, because what always happens is she eventually will find someone she is attracted to, and eventually you will get angry and resentful. And that new guy knows what's going on. He's not going to be a complete idiot and assume that you are just here with completely perfect saintly intentions. He knows, men know each other.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just going to be uncomfortable. Be honest. Be honest about what you want. And you'd be shocked how many women do respond well when a man confidently says, you know what? I am attracted to you. I would like us for us to be friends, but I would like something more. Is there room here for something more, or is there absolutely no hope? Exploring that instead of just secretly hoping someday that she'll figure out that you're the right. No. That's deception. Be fully honest, be fully confident, and get your answer.
Perfect. I love it. And now I know this can be really daunting for people that are sometimes introverted, or they label themselves as being introverted, that don't want to go ahead and directly talk to the women, communicate what their deep feelings are. But let's say once they do get up that courage, they decide that they'll go and they'll talk to the woman they like or they love and communicate that. What should they do afterwards? Because you communicate, that's one thing, but what do? Do you then totally break away from her, saying, unless you decide that we should be together, let's do it, or we're not talking unless you give me some solid ground?
Step one, be honest with yourself of what you're going to be able to take. If you have put your game out there and said, I would like to be with you, and she says no, most men are not capable of maintaining a relationship after that point, because she has actively rejected you as a man, and and that's going to be in your mind. So you're always going to be waiting and watching to see who she picks and how he's better
Hmm.
than you. And then you're going to be justifying it and resentful and rationalizing. And strong, healthy, confident men don't play this game. If you do not want to get trapped in that cycle, be honest with yourself about what you can and cannot accept, and then turn around and be fully honest with her and explain that and say, I am really sorry. This is where I'm at. This is who I am. These are my feelings, and this is what I'm concerned could happen. What would you like to do about this? And present that out to her and be honest. Build an honest relationship. Don't build one where you're pretending.
I love it. And I also see this happened a lot in my college as well, because I knew there were some of the famous guys that actually always got all the girls, and there were some that always were like friend zoned, to kind of go ahead and say, they don't have those feelings. And I've noticed those guys that were always outgoing, outspoken,
Right.
who knew what they wanted, they just communicated, and girls actually like this. Even though I've
Yeah.
noticed women saying at times that they like nice men, it's
Mm,
actually the opposite of what I've
mm.
noticed. Women, so what are your thoughts there?
100%. So I work with a tremendous number of software engineers in my coaching program, and I teach them that it's not about just being nice and earning approval and making women feel good. And it's not just about being a jerk and taking everything you want and being complete. I don't care. And no, it's not that women want one or the other. It's that in the middle is being a kind but confident man who knows what he wants and then presents it in the right way, that is listening to her and valuing her without making her your mother and above you.
Hmm.
It's going into the relationship and being honest with her, and then being able to say, I would like a committed relationship. I teach a 3-date method. In the first date, I would like a committed relationship. Is that what you're looking for too? Or are you just here for fun? What should we do? How aligned are we? Second date, hey, here's who I am. Here's my goals in life. Here's my values I follow. These are the important parts of myself. Instead of just being nice and saying, here's what I can do for you. Here's how
Hmm.
I can make you feel. Here's who I am. Accept me or don't. Third date is, here's the rough parts of me, but here's why I'm turning those around. And here's the work I'm doing building myself up. Can you still accept me as I am? By the end of the third date, if both of you have followed that step process, you build a committed relationship. If you go through the first 3 dates just trying to make her feel good and like never ask her for anything, never put any pressure at all, just completely like no eye contact, totally shy and she's not going to be interested, because you're telling her, number one, you're not interested. And number two, she's going to
Hmm.
actually view you as like a child that she has to take care of. A lot of men with something called anxious attachment style do this, where they think they are worthless. They don't believe they deserve to be loved, or they don't know what women want from them. They try to please her like they pleased mom. And that's never going to work. The guys who mimic confidence but are jerks, they at least mimic enough confidence to get a woman into a relationship. Learn how to be right in that middle zone where you are confident but still kind. That's the key there.
Wow, I love it. And since you brought that up, you spoke about some methods, three different steps, right? I just want to dive a
Mhm.
little deeper there. So when we say that someone is in probably, the young, they are single, and they probably like someone. Now, what can they do to first seem attractive, at the
Ooh.
same time build confidence?
Ooh, good question. Good question. So, I have my attachment bootcamp video course, which guides people through building better relationships. And in there, in module 2, it talks about identifying your core principles of who you are. So many men who have difficulty attracting women during that stage, they don't actually live to their own values, their principles, who they are, right? Their honor code. For
Hmm.
me, it's honesty, integrity, and compassion. Those 3 values guide everything I do. So most men instead go out and break their own values to try to appease other people. They say, well, if
Hmm.
I'm too honest, she won't like me. And so they're not an honest man. They're a dishonest man. If I keep my word, then I'll make this person upset. Or if I'm too courageous or out, whatever it is, they violate their own values to please other people. And women find
Hmm.
that very, very unattractive because it makes you unpredictable, unreliable, all of those things. What I teach men is take your 3 core values in the beginning of the day, put a note on your phone, a reminder when you wake up that says, I am a man of, and list your 3 values. At the end of the day,
Hmm.
set a phone reminder that asks, did I uphold my honor today? Did you? And you have to challenge yourself every day. If you want to become confident and attractive to women, you must respect yourself. It's not about loving yourself. Respect yourself as a man who lives to your principles.
Okay. Wow. I mean, you froze for a second, but you were able to actually finish with your punchline. And I think that was
Mhm.
important, that
Mhm.
a man should value his uh, values, the main core values that he has. And I
Yes.
think this has to do a lot with, before you get into a relationship, first you need to know who you are, what do you stand for. And once when you know that, then is when you can actually make someone else happy, because then you know who you are and confidence in your own skin, rather than we becoming a walkover where, women just come over and walk all over you.
Yes, exactly right.
Interesting.
A man is defined by his values. Be a man of values, and you will respect yourself, and that's where your confidence will come from.
All right, perfect. Now let's say lucky guys who actually were able to go ahead, they built their confidence and they moved forward, they got into a relationship. Everything goes well, as we know, right? I've noticed that first 90 days of the relationship is always good. It's like the honeymoon season that you have where everything else is good. But that's when you actually, after 90 days or something, you actually start noticing a lot of red flags, things that you did not want now coming up. So first thing, as soon as you get into a relationship, what do you think are some red flags that people should be keeping in mind?
Okay, I've got 5 of them here for you. Number 1 is secrecy, just a lot of secrecy. It doesn't even have to be hiding things from you actively, but just never shares who they are fully, never shares what
Hmm.
they want, can't ask for what they want, very secretive, and they keep everything inside. Number 2 is people pleasing, right? Is she overly engaged in making you happy no matter what? She's violating her own principles for you. Number 3 is the happiness meter view. So does she go around viewing everyone else, including you in her life, as I have to make people's feelings happy on a meter above their head, and they're good feelings or bad feelings? And if I give you good feelings, do I then expect something from you? Is it
Hmm.
endlessly transactions of making you feel good and making everybody else feel good? It's a little different from people pleasing. Number 4 is solving problems alone. Does she say, no, I got this, I don't need your help? No, I don't need your help. Does she always push you away, or does she solve problems together with you? And number 5 is the you and me versus us mentality. Does she view the two of you as partners in something where it is us and we have a problem, we need to solve this together, we can do this together, here's our goals we're going toward? Or is it you and me? Is it two distinct people where she's never going to let that wall down? Those are the 5 big red flags you need to pay attention to early on in a relationship.
Wow. And once you do identify one of these flags, which I probably say, let's start from first, the fifth one,
Mhm.
typically, which I think probably is the first one, because now is where you're trying to get to know that person. That's when I think that wall would be there, where you versus me, before we get to that we. And once
Mhm.
someone does identify, it can be both men or a woman, but they start identifying that, this person is not actually always in line with what we want to do. Maybe the first person does believe that, yeah, I'm in the we mentality, but the other person is not in that. In that scenario, what do you do? How do you communicate, or what's the way to break that wall?
All 5 of these red flags are not black flags. They don't end the relationship. A red flag is something you must talk about. It's an opportunity to see where the other person is coming from. Always bring it up with a solution-minded goal in mind and say, look, I want us to be together as a couple. Here is something I've noticed that's kind of difficult. What can we do to come through this and solve this red flag? Tell me about you. Tell me about where the red flag's coming from, and then let's build a plan to fix it. If the other person responds well and says, yeah, I understand, let's fix it, and then they follow through, great. If the other person gets angry and defensive and takes it personally, big sign that you're not meant to be a couple.
Oh wow, that's something deep, right? The moment you realize that that's not the couple that you want, even though we try to, I think, make things work with the other person, hoping that
Mhm.
well, you love her, maybe you should give another chance. But I think those are some red flags that we should definitely be aware of. Um,
So many real quick, so many of my software engineer clients who come in for coaching, once they do get a girlfriend, they say, Adam, I don't know what to do about this woman. And then they list any of those 5 red flags and say, this is what she's doing. And she's done this for a year or two. And I don't know what to do. And I say, well, have you ever talked to her about it? Well, no, because that would make her mad. Well, then that tells you this is not a relationship between you. This is a problem that she is just living and having fun, and you are just dealing with her bad behaviors. But if you've never asked her about it, then part of the problem's with you. You need to bring it up and talk with her about it. If the talk could break you up, you need to have the talk because you're living in a relationship that could break up like that.
Yeah, yeah. And what about the first part, the secrecy part, wherein you identify that the partner or your partner is actually hiding things from you? How do you communicate in that scenario?
This is going to surprise a lot of people. The biggest piece of secrecy is not just hiding secrets from you. It is refusing to share their needs with you because they think that you'll be
Hmm.
unhappy, you'll be resentful, they'll be a burden. They are too embarrassed or too shy or too secretive to share their needs. They still have them. They are now secrets, and the expectation is that you are going to figure them out. And now all the pressure is on you to perform and make them happy. And what's going to happen is they're going to do nice things to make you happy, and you have to figure out their code, and it will never work. And eventually they will get angry at you for not reading their mind correctly. What you need to do is address that and say, hey, look, you don't share your needs with me. I want you to. I need you to. That's one of my needs, is
Hmm.
to hear your needs. I would love to meet those needs because that's how we build a fulfilling relationship. I have a whole method for people to build that and be able to guide them through sharing their needs, but it comes down to this. If you don't share your needs, you are creating stress for your partner because they will never know what's happening, and you will
Hmm.
eventually break up the relationship. If you share your needs, you are helping them feel safe and secure in the relationship because they now know what you're expecting of them and they don't have to perform. Learn to share those needs. When you see that, have that discussion and say, I'm not hearing this from you. I'm not getting this from you. I want to share this with you. Can you please share it with me? If they pull back and freak out, it's not a good match. If they say, oh, that's great, I understand that, it's really hard for me, but thank you, let's work through this, that is a good match. And then see if they follow through on it, because that person is overcoming their fear for you.
Wow. I mean, there are so many things that come to my mind, right? To be thinking from, let's say, someone who's in a relationship. Now, someone does identify that maybe the other person is not sharing what needs to be shared. The other person is the other partner is trying hard to ensure that they can be something that he can come or she can create a common ground for both of them to flourish, but that doesn't happen. And probably you're not meant to be together. In that scenario, what should that partner do?
Have one last discussion that is a frank discussion about, hey, look, here's where I'm at. This is what I would need from you for us to have a great relationship. I would love to have a great relationship. If we do that, here's what needs to happen. What do you need from me on your side as well? The discussion here is not about feelings. It goes back to those values, those three principles,
Hmm.
and then what your long-term goal is as a couple. If your long-term goal is get married, have kids, have grandkids, great grandkids, raise a wonderful family, and everyone loves each other, and you've got these three core values, bring that back into the relationship and say, these are the three core values that are threatened. Here's our long-term goal that is threatened. Your behavior right now, I don't hate you, but your behavior right now is dangerous to that long-term goal, because it's going to break us up if we do get married, and it's breaking my three values. So I can't respect you the way that things are right now. Can you change the way that you're behaving? Or is this just a complete mismatch? And it doesn't come down to we are bad people, or you're bad, or I hate you, or you make me feel. It doesn't do that.
Hmm.
It says, these are my goals. These are my values. Can you align with them? And if not, that's okay. You need to go find someone who aligns with you better. That's it. No feelings, just do it.
Wow, I love it. And what I've noticed so far, what we are discussing, I think two major things that come to my mind the moment when we say what can make a relationship successful, what can make a man successful or a woman successful. The first being true to yourself, identifying your core values, that what you stand for, and then actually effectively communicating with that other person. That's when you are able to first yourself what you want, and then you're communicating what you want and what can you do to create something out. I think missing one out of these two, especially the first part where you don't know yourself, I think can create a biggest blunder, because now you might do things that you don't want to do in the first place for someone else, and then you become bitter and cynical
That's
hmm.
absolutely true. Absolutely true.
And I have a follow-up question to this. Now, let's say everything is going good, and I've noticed this happening oftentimes when someone is in a relationship, uh, and maybe for some reason, right? I've noticed this happening even to partners or husband and wife that have been together for years, uh, but they cheat for some reason. I don't know what, right? But I want to get your thoughts. You worked with multiple people, partners, families, couples. What is that maybe 2 or 3 top things that you've seen that causes or basically is the outcome where someone has gone ahead and cheated on the other one?
Mhm. So I'm a coach now online. I do online coaching, but before this, I was a marriage therapist for years,
Hmm.
couples and marriage therapist. And I worked on so much cheating and so many affairs, so many. And it boiled down to these 3 pieces. Number one, it is the us, me and them. I'll just do this. The us, me and them mindset of you and me versus us as a partnership. If you're secretive, you can't share your needs, you're keeping everything inside, eventually your needs don't get met and you get kind of crazy and it's all about feelings. So then eventually you get resentful of your partner for not reading your mind years into the relationship, and you go find somebody who makes you feel a little bit good. These are usually the people who come back and confess that they had the affair, and then they have to try to work through it. But it's a boiling up of not sharing those needs through those years because it's just me versus you. Number two is the people who see everything as a transaction of feelings. I'm going to give you good feelings, and eventually you will fill up, and you will do what you are supposed to do. These people, they're not people pleasing. They're usually more avoidant. They push back and they keep people out. Their problem isn't that they don't feel worth it. Their problem is that they don't trust other human beings. So if the
Hmm.
other person, in this case, if it's your girlfriend or wife, if she is endlessly believing through her whole life that everybody else will betray her, then she keeps everyone out. All she has to focus on then is making her husband happy all the time. If she doesn't get what she needs, she thinks, I made you happy all these times. But eventually she will just say, if I cheat, it's no big deal because I'm just getting good feelings from people. He would cheat if he got the chance, so I will just do it. These are the ones who do not confess that they had the affair. They usually have many affairs. These cheat earlier, usually at 1 or 2 years, they will cheat. And they will go out and have good feelings with someone else. And if you find out, these are the people that say, they meant nothing to me. Well, yeah, that person literally meant nothing to them. It was just a
Hmm.
source of getting good feelings. Then they came back to you to get more good feelings from you, and that's it. Those are the 2 big ones that I see. Number 3 is this. When somebody else has cheated in the relationship, the other person often will feel completely broken and separated, and they will begin making choices they don't like either. So when that person who's secretive
Hmm.
and pushes back and doesn't even connect other people, even to their own spouse, they push back and then they go cheat secretly. If the other spouse finds out, they blame themselves first. They say, I was a bad wife or a bad husband. I didn't give you your needs. I didn't take care of you. It's my fault. And then after 4, 5, 6 years of beating themselves up and the other person cheating again, then the first person will go out and cheat again and cheat and then feel horrible about it. And the other person will say, oh, I knew you would betray me eventually.
Hmm.
And even though they've cheated 5 times, those are the 3 big affairs that I see is resentment over years, or right away in the first year or 2 because they never really connected to you, but they looked like they did. And number 3, because the other person has cheated and you spent years beating yourself up.
Wow, ma'am, that's deep when you think about the psychology as well as how attraction works in a relationship. And this is one question that even I have in my mind. So let's say someone is in a relationship and they've they've realized that that spark that initially was there when they initially got married or when they were in a relationship, and this when this was all in the beginning stages, that is no longer there probably after a few years. They don't feel the same level of attraction, the same that spark. What should be done in that scenario if someone's or someone out of the other two, let's say the partners or couples, that level of attraction is dropping? What can be done?
Mhm. There's a very specific mechanism for this that the research shows actually brings that spark back. There's a special hormone that your brain releases when you and your partner solve challenges together, when you guys accomplish a
Hmm.
mission together, when you achieve a goal together. It can be putting together a puzzle, it can be rebuilding a car, redecorating a living room, repairing your house, it can be solving financial problems, it can be anything that you accomplish together. And at the end of it, you can high five and say, we did this together as a team. And both of you know you both accomplished it, not just one of you. You both
Hmm.
did it together as a team. It's a hormone called vasopressin. Men have more receptors in our brain for vasopressin than women do, but women women still get this. It's very important that your brain every few months or at least every few years, build this back in and say, this person solved problems with me. They are so valuable to have in my life. I want them around all the time. I'm going to boost my good feelings toward them, and I'm going to invest emotionally into this relationship again to keep them around. And it's the hormone that keeps them around like this. It brings a second honeymoon, a third honeymoon, a fifth honeymoon, a 10th honeymoon. As you renew it, the research shows that's what increases that relationship for life.
Wow, interesting. Let me think. So when relationships work that way, I think then obviously you are not looking for that good feeling anymore with other people, because that same level of enthusiasm you're sharing with your partner.
Yes.
And
You feel
one of
bonded,
the
and your brain, yeah, go ahead.
go ahead, please. No, go ahead.
Your brain actually prevents you from looking for partners otherwise, because it knows it would threaten that relationship that is so important. So your brain will actively fight against anybody who kind of tries to come in, because your brain says, this person is so helpful. If I get hurt, this person will help me. Get everyone else away from me.
Interesting. But one other thing, which is maybe a little opposite to this, is I've heard that oftentimes when, let's say, men are out or women are out, maybe because of some external factors, alcohol they were drinking, and they trip over and they go ahead and cheat. And maybe that was just one time they realize. And I've heard this over and over again with a lot of people. What are your thoughts on that? Can that happen? Like you just didn't realize what was happening, and then it's one time only.
It's rare in the scheme of things. Typically, as far as all the affairs out there, it's not the most common. Everyone always pretends it is, but it's not. My question is, number one, why are they out drinking without their spouse or their partner? Number two, why are they out drinking with other members of the opposite sex while they're without their partner and out drinking? Right? You don't just go out and pick up one beer and then suddenly you are surrounded by naked women. That's not usually how this happens, right? And anyone who's had alcohol, has had a beer, knows that this is not the game. You don't usually just make one tiny decision that makes you go out and accidentally have an affair. Even in this case, it is multiple decisions you have made of, I will go out without my partner, I will get drunk, I will be around members of the other sex, and I am going to be so disconnected probably from my own partner that my brain doesn't even kick in and stop me. My brain just says, why not? And has no problem during that point. If you are properly bonded, none of that sequence of events will take place.
Wow, I like what you just mentioned, because now this solves a lot of questions that I had in my mind, right? Because oftentimes people say, I did not know that it just happened, but now that's not what it is, because as you're suggesting, it's multiple small decisions that you might have disregarded or decided that, you know what, I don't care about that. That is what eventually, which means we are responsible for the action 100% of what we have done, and we can't blame on any external stimuli that actually probably we say that is what was the reason behind we cheating or anyone else cheating in that matter.
Correct. I get so many people who come into my coaching who have cheated in the past, and they say, how do I rebuild trust with my partner, with my spouse? And I say, well, tell me why you wouldn't cheat on them again. And they say, because I love them so much. And I say, that's the problem. Your desire to not cheat on them is only based on your good feelings for them. If your desire to not cheat on them is based on your internal values, then you would say, I would never cheat on my spouse because of my 3 core values, because of my religion, because of all the other people in my life who would hate me, because I would hate myself, because all these other pieces. And oh, by the way, because I also love them. That shouldn't be number one. That should be number last.
Wow, Adam. I mean, you've nailed it. I mean, this was amazing, because how you've just pointed out, I think this goes back to our value system, what we stand for, and then really standing against, these are something that I will never do in my relationship. Even if the road leads, it doesn't matter who is in front of me. I'm just going to stay true to myself, because first I value myself. That's the reason I'm not going to cheat on the other person, not because I love her so much or I love him so much in the first place. Interesting. Now,
right.
Since we're talking about cheating at times, and sometimes it happens as we've seen it, and it is our responsibility to understand that, yes, this is not something that happens by chance. This is intentional, though we are just struggling under the roof. One thing I've also been reading a lot and these are some questions that I'm asking you because these are some frequent questions that keep coming up from multiple people. If you could compare what happened, let's say 40, 50 years ago, people oftentimes, and this typically is in India, right? India is a culture where even today, majority of the marriages happen uh, arranged, right? So that's arranged marriage. It's not typically a love marriage. But what does the data show? Like, what's the difference between someone who married? It was a love marriage. You fell in love with your partner and then you married, versus in India, that's pretty prevalent that your parents choose your spouse. You met them and then you basically got. First question would be, because the divorce rates, I'm seeing the divorce rates are pretty much rising a lot. So first question is, do you think the divorce rates are rising? And the second question tying to this one is, have you ever compared or come into a scenario where you've noticed, are love marriages more successful than arranged marriage, if you've come across that scenario?
Good question. Very good question. I will answer it this way. Here in the United States, especially, the divorce rate is actually decreasing because
Hmm.
fewer people are getting married. So the
Ah.
overall number of divorces is going down, but within it, the divorce rates are just the couples who are afraid, they no longer even get married. And even couples who otherwise probably would be okay, they don't even get married. So the marriage rate is falling here in America really bad, like very badly here in the United States. So the divorce rates they're going down, but for a bad reason, if you want to think of it that way.
Hmm.
As for love marriages versus arranged marriages, I will say this, the research bears this out and proves this, that marriages do best when the couple, surprise, surprise, shares core values, number
Hmm.
one, and they can talk about them. Usually this is in the form of like a shared religion, or if both of them are deeply into that shared religion. That shared religion, by the way, gives you many core values. That's what that is supposed
Hmm.
to be. So if you both just have the same religion, but you don't care about it, may not help. If you're both deeply into that religious faith, that can really help. Number two is if your family pressure is increasing on the relationship so that both of you have to treat each other well, but the family pressure isn't so bad that it just covers you and smothers you, it encourages you to have good conversations. If your
Hmm.
family system teaches you to have all the talks today that we've talked about, if you see a red flag in your spouse and say, hey, we should talk about this, not to break up, but let's talk about it to fix it and be a good couple. And the spouse says, yeah, let's do that. And you can talk through those problems. Great. Couples who get married for love, the problem is that many of them are only in it for feelings. So at the beginning of the relationship, within
Hmm.
the first 7 months to a year, you are only mimicking what feels like love, and one of you might be fake for the first 7 months. The research shows the first 7 months are fake. They are fake in
Wow.
most dating circumstances. So up to the first year, even sometimes it is fake. Usually you won't even find the problems until 10, 11, 12 months in. This is why many couples don't get married here in the United States, especially so many women who come into my coaching or come to my live events on TikTok. They have been with the same man for 8 years and they come in and say, Adam, is he ever going to ask me to marry him? And I say, what are you asking
Yeah.
me? Have you ever asked him? Well, no, if
Hmm.
I even bring it up, he gets really uncomfortable and starts talking about breaking up. Well, then you are probably never going to get married. Why didn't you have this
Wow.
conversation in the first year or in the first month? They're afraid to. So many men are afraid to bring up commitment. Men think, when I talk to men in my dating practice, I say, have you ever told a woman that you want a committed relationship? No, women would hate that. I'm not going to talk. Well, what do you mean women would hate that? They love marriage. What are you telling me? Men and women are
Hmm.
both afraid to talk about commitment. So they aren't getting committed. They aren't getting engaged. The people then who are in love marriages, they're just, oh, it feels so wonderful. And they jump into it. And then the feelings don't last. And then it wears off. And then they say, we're miserable. Well, yeah, that's because you only got
Hmm.
married based on feelings. If you get married on based
Wow.
on values, family, those connections, things arranged marriages often are based on, you have a higher rate of success navigating the problems that come up. Instead of saying, I don't feel good, I'm out of here, you say, we don't feel good, but we have to fix this because of our family, because of our religion. Then you have a reason to fix it. That's why it's better.
Wow. I mean, this is so good. And I like the fact that you backed it up with research, because this is one question that I've noticed happening over and over again. And I'm not sure, Adam, if you've interacted with a lot of people from India. I mean, we
Mhm.
kind of have a little influence from what's happening in the West. So, a lot of things that I can possibly see are being replicated here. But since this is happening in the US, right, where the marriage rates are dropping, and as you mentioned, that's because people are kind of even afraid of commitment and so on. So where do you think are we headed in that scenario? Do you think people not being married, is that going up? I think it is definitely going to impact, because then what are we looking in terms of raising good family? Because a family is what makes a good home. A home makes a good neighborhood, a society,
Yes.
a nation, and a world in general. But what are your thoughts? What should we do? I mean, is this entire notion of, we don't have to typically get married, we can just stay like this for the rest of our lives? What are your thoughts there?
Yes, so great question. I have worked with a lot of people who are from India or recently immigrated to the United States from India, and some of them have warm families that teach them good skills and love, but encourage them. And some of them have really difficult families that just cover and smother them and
Hmm.
pressure them and make them miserable. I've worked with both. And so I've talked with them. And when I built my attachment boot camp course, I teach in there how to build a family system that is supposed to be together, bonded, taking care of each other, nurturing the good parts of Indian families, for example, good parts, how to take out the bad parts of those families,
Hmm.
build them in with better conversations. All the skills I'm teaching here in this podcast so far about how to talk to your partner is also about how to talk to your brother, to your aunt, your uncle,
Hmm.
or even maybe with your parents, and build a more loving relationship with them to build a better family system. That is necessary because here in the West, especially in America, we are seeing whole systems collapsing where children
Hmm.
don't even grow up knowing that they have a father, or they grow up and their brain says, I've never met him, which means I'm a bad kid. And he would
Hmm.
he would have come back and been with me if I was good. What was wrong with me that he thought I didn't deserve to be loved? And then they go out into the world thinking I don't deserve to be loved. Or they grow up with mom like very angry and alone, like single mom, or she divorced dad and said, he's a scumbag. I hate that man. And they miss him. The child misses him, but grew up thinking everyone around them is evil and is going to betray each other. So they're not the problem. Everyone else in the world is the problem. And they go out in the world scared of trusting anyone and keep everyone at arm's length. They're usually the ones who cheat first in relationships. It's called
Hmm.
avoidant behavior. They avoid, they go out and cheat. And that's what we're dealing with now here in the West, is a hyper focused census system of people who believe they are worthless and don't believe that don't deserve to be loved. So they have to earn love and approval from other people all the time, but they can never be happy. Or people who think everyone else is lying and betraying, so they have to keep everyone out. So they have to make other people happy so they can keep them back like this and manipulate them. And that's what we're seeing in America with a hookup culture, with sex, with relationships. Everyone is hurting each other because nobody is able to open up and have the talks they need. And that comes from broken marriages, broken families, not growing up seeing your mom and dad loving each other, having the hard talks, talking to you, guiding you. If you don't get that growing up, you don't know how to do it as an adult, and that destroys the whole system, destroys the whole culture, destroys a whole nation. That is what we have to turn around for every nation.
Wow. I mean, this is a major thing, I think, what you have just pointed, because what we are noticing is the pattern from where kids are not even aware that this is what is actually happening in the world. They themselves are broken, and when these same kids who are broken grow up, they also go ahead, because now they are not identified who they are, and they are going ahead and breaking other people's as well, which is just having a ripple effect on other people. Now,
Yes.
what can we do to stop this? So you mentioned avoidance, right? One of the reasons that
Mhm.
people are these are the first people that cheat. uh,
Mhm.
these guys, I think, when we say that, I think they have to go ahead and again go to the root of our conversation that we were having some time back, is identifying their core values.
Mhm.
And probably sometimes I also know that this could be because of the fact that probably the home that they were born in was not very supportive. The father or the
Right.
mother, there was some issue that they faced because of which they couldn't heal themselves. But
Right.
in that scenario, what do you think is the process of healing to ensure that we are not portraying something bad that we have, not something bad, but we have not healed ourselves? And how can we heal ourselves to ensure that we create a better society?
Boy, you've asked me the right question. So this is something called attachment theory, is what this is. I am an
Hmm.
attachment specialist. I retired from just general practice therapy so I could focus into fixing this core problem right here. Attachment is the way we
Hmm.
connect other people, believing either that we deserve to be loved or that other people are capable of love. We have to believe both, and we must learn it from our parents. We don't just learn it on an accident. Our parents either teach us that we deserve love and that other people are trustworthy, or our parents teach us that we don't deserve love and other people aren't trustworthy. Either we become anxious attachment of approval seeking, like, please don't leave me, don't abandon me. I know I don't deserve love. Please don't leave me. That's nice guy syndrome. That's an
Yeah.
anxious attachment style. Or avoidance of, I don't believe anyone else is going to be real. Everyone's going to try to hurt me. I will make them happy from over here and do nice things and then keep them back. And if they try to get too close, I will run away. That's avoidant. And then you can be a blend of both, which is very chaotic based on being very hurt. The disorganized style. These are the three different styles. What you're talking about is fixing those wrong beliefs to become what is called secure attachment style. Then that's what I teach people how to do. My attachment boot camp course, that's what it does, is run you through the 10 exact steps you must follow. It goes like this. You fix your relationship with yourself first. Do I deserve to be loved? What are my values? What are my needs? And how do I communicate that in the right way to other people? Second step is to learn how you connect to other people based on only those values. You filter out bad people who hate those values. You filter in good people who love those values, and you communicate with those values, and you build your relationships based on them. And then you give and take love with each other, and you take care of your mutual group, your network, your friends, your family. And then from there, you learn who you can date and who you can't. And you have the good relationship with yourself and with your close friends and family network. So you can use that to date better. I have the 3-date method is inside there in module number 9. And then how men relate in relationships and in and out of the bedroom, and how women relate in and out of the bedroom. You have to build that in based on these good beliefs and build your beliefs that you have with other people. You must do it in all 3 places: with yourself, with your close network, and then with your partner. That's those 3 places is how you rebuild those wrong beliefs if you have attachment issues.
Interesting.
A lot to think about.
Well, I mean, yeah, because I'm someone who, when there's something like a revelation, I like to ponder it, think about it, and then, digest it, because this is so many things in a conversation that we're talking about that can literally change the way couples interact with each other. And I like where this conversation is coming from, because now we are not focusing on the other person first, but it all starts from us first, identifying who you are, what you stand for. Because when we know what we stand for is when we can help others also become better. One of the questions that I think which I also had in the question that that I had shared with you, if a man and a woman, and I've noticed this is happening in the US, where now the culture is 50-50, right? You do 50, I do 50. I have a job, you have a job, we have kids at home. But if you go 100 years or 200 back, things were a little different, at least from family perspective. I'm not going to talk about equality and so on, because that's a different topic altogether. But the family seemed, again, I'm saying seemed, to be raising with sometimes good values. There was a culture of we in the family, everyone knew the father and so on, and which is what is becoming a problem these days, because kids don't know who their father is, and people are not ready to take responsibility of another kid, right? So what do you think is having this culture today, where both a man and women are working and kids are at home? Does this culture impact the way we are upbringing the kids and how the overall society is built? Or what are your thoughts there? Or was previous days better?
If both parents are working, a stranger has to take care of the child. And a stranger is not going to teach the child that they deserve love or to trust other people. The research shows that kids who get put in daycare, especially very early and for long periods of time, have very bad mental health outcomes later in life, usually. And it's usually anxiety-based mental health problems later in life. If you want your kid to have overwhelming anxiety, not know how to get and receive love, and not know how to date or build a marriage, put them in daycare, especially very early. But there's also research that shows women who work in the corporate world, they asked them, do you wish you could stay at home? 84% of women said yes. Do you resent your husband for not making enough to keep you at home? 66% of women said yes. They resented their husband for not making enough money to keep them at home with their children. That right there, massive problem for their family, for the relationship, for the kids, everything, giant problem. So that is is contributing to a downward spiral in society. It gets worse and worse. It begins with yanking mom out of the home so that the kids don't learn love from her. It continues with throwing them around with strangers who are supposed to raise them for you that won't teach them values. They don't.
True.
They will just teach them numbers and games. And then it continues into not knowing that they can give and receive love with anybody else.
Wow. And I think this answers a lot of questions about that people have and the society, because I've noticed oftentimes we are kind of stated that, all of us should work. But I think this is something that where I let myself a little back, because I don't believe everything that comes in media, in newspapers and so on, where they are stating, we should all be working. I mean, like, why? Why should I be working, or why should my wife be working in the first place? Why can't we? Because the end of the intent of someone working, I think, has to do with providing for the family. And I agree with what you just said, because now when you gave me that numbers, 84% of women stating that they would prefer being home, which means women are going out because men are not able to provide what they should be doing actually in the first place. And women are resenting that. And then what do you think if a woman is being resentful because she is now going and working? She doesn't want to do that. And then when you come back home, she is not being very happy because obviously she has 10 other things that is going on in the office, and men are like, why?
That's something to think
Okay.
about. So I've been married for 14 years. My wife, when we very first met, she was running a business. She is now a stay-at-home mom who takes care of our 4 children. I work 12 hours a day doing attachment work, coaching, selling courses,
Yeah.
guiding on the online, doing podcasts, everything. I work, I provide for my family. We also build savings for the future. That's important. It's not that she doesn't work. She works at home with our children 12 hours a day, 24 hours a day, taking care of them, guiding them, teaching them. People who say we should all be working say family is not important. Children are not important. Don't raise your own kids, pay someone else to raise your kids. That's what happens. The question, everyone should work. Either you don't have children or you are spending the money you are working to earn on daycare. Here in the United States, so many women, if you have 2 children, you may as well quit your job because you will now pay $2,000 per month for daycare services. And that's more than most women will make. So if you have 3 children, do not work, do not have a job. You are spending more than that money. You are losing money so that you could go work, and you are still losing money every month to pay for daycare. If you have 3 or more children here in the United States, it's not possible. It is just not possible. And I think people are waking up to that fact, and women have known it, but they are really breaking out of believing that work is a wonderful thing in itself when it's not. Do the work with your family. Take care with your family. If that's the work you want to do it. That builds for the future even more than money does.
Absolutely. And I think I totally agree with what you just mentioned. And also the fact, because end of the day, that's what I focus on. I'm not concerned about what the media says, what the society says, saying, we are making women come to the forefront, and which is fine. I mean, definitely, right? All power to you. If you really want to work, that's your passion, please, by all means.
Right.
But if you're working just because you're not able to have that security at home, maybe because your husband is not able to provide, then you go out and then do it. That's something that we need to think. And then connecting this with liberty, then equality, I think that's a very wrong path, because now I think you're being brainwashed by someone else telling you what is freedom, what you should be doing versus what is that. Because now, as you said, right, if a woman is working at home, that's not less work. And I personally think that that's actually even harder, because now you have to take care of the home entire day, kids, giving them values. And it's a constant battle, and you're creating the futures of tomorrow. I think that's one of the noblest things that you can actually do.
Yes. There's a big difference between, like you said, equality and saying if a woman has a passion, she should be able to do that job. Wonderful. My wife ran a business when we first started courting to get married. She ran a business. Wonderful. If women crave that, by all means. But there's a giant difference between what our society says a woman should be allowed to, yes, and then they say a woman must go out and get a full college degree and have $100,000 in debt and work at a corporate job and never give it up because your husband might betray you someday and you need money of your own and a career for when he betrays you. And that's what the trap many women fall into, is fear of their husband betraying them, so they must work because they don't trust him and he doesn't make enough. And that is going to kill your marriage right there.
Wow, that's deep. And there's one other question that I have, which is tied to this, right? Because this is one of the, I think, major advice or major con that the society is doing in conning people by stating, everybody should work, you should have your own money, they should have their own money, and so on. Is there any other advice that you've noticed that the society is portraying, or a message that they're portraying, which is actually counterintuitive to the marriage system and relationships in general?
There are two, and they're linked, and I will tell them both together. Number one is that you have to love yourself first before other people can love you. No, you have to respect yourself and then go out and connect with people who respect you as well for your core values, who they then love you, and then you receive love from someone you respect, so then you believe you deserve to be loved. You must be loved by someone you respect, and to do that, you must build your core values. Number one. Number two is very much like it, and this is where men get stuck, is the belief that women only want bad men or jerks. It's just like that first one. Hey, men, women only like jerks, and they only want to be with bad men who treat them badly. And you don't love yourself. And if you want love, you have to love yourself first. So now you must be a bad man and love yourself at the same time. And that is impossible. This is where most men who are not dating, they come into my coaching practice, they swallowed the red pill online, or they're angry at women, or they're confused by women. They don't know what to do. And they come in and say, how am I supposed to love myself? And why do women only want bad men? How am I supposed to be bad and love myself? No. Take this back. Women love men who are confident, and the bad men can pretend to be men who live to values and confidence. But when at the end of the day, they break their values for their own selfishness. You must be a man of good values and integrity and confidence and knowing who you are, and then go out and build connection with other people who respect you, get their connection and love, and say, I am a man who lives to my values and values, and my confidence is up because I am loved and respected by people who also share my values. I am a man worthy of respect. And then women will look at you very different from how they look at you now. And when I teach that to men, it only takes a couple of sessions for them to build themselves up. Like, it doesn't take very long, men. A couple of weeks of being who you are, who you're supposed to be, and your confidence goes up. And then women start noticing you differently, and you don't go in the friend zone anymore, because now you're not a little puppy. Now you're a man of value and confidence. And that's where men find the love of their life.
Wow, you've just nailed it again, because I love the fact around you stating what makes a man a true man. It's the confidence, it's the way you communicate. It's I think the word I could probably say is drive, passion that a man has, because the more passionate you are, the more driven you are with your own goals, you understand yourself, you portray that wherever you go. People, and I think women are able to pick that up because we are primal, right? End of the day, we are able to pick things up based on how a person walks, the way they talk, and so on. And one question I have, because I know we are coming to the end of the conversation, but there's one question I want to ask, but because I think this is very, very critical. I've noticed men don't go forward and talk about this rejection that they typically face by women, right? And men are actually the one that face a lot of rejection, and women are the one that actually pick men, right? It's not men that are, it's the other way around. Men are trying very hard, but there are very few men that are actually able to get the women they want, and a majority of them are where they want someone but they're not getting it. And if you look at the data, the way how men are more prone to depression, they are more prone to committing suicide, because they're not able to get what they want, and they can't even communicate, because society then also says that be a man, right? Just go ahead and be a man. Don't sit here and cry, which that's a different topic. But men are more prone to falling into that zone where they can actually become the victim. But the way I look at how the media is portraying it, sometimes seems like they want to make sure that women look as they are the victim and men are the oppressors, which I totally kind of don't even understand at times. But what do you think is the message? One message, if you could give to all the women out there, because end of the day, the intent here is both of us are equals. There is no way that one is above or one is below. It's all of us are equal. We just are doing some different roles that we have. But what is your role? What will your message be to women so that possibly they should be doing, so that men can also like support men, so they can come forward and talk and not get brainwashed by all that media nonsense that is going on?
Women, especially here in the United States, I work with all kinds of women in my coaching practice as well. And they come in and they are so afraid to hold men to any kind of standard. They are so afraid to talk about commitment. They are afraid to talk about their own values, but they want men who have values, who have commitment, who have goals, who have ideas and legacies and hopes. And everyone is men are afraid to talk about that with women. Women are afraid to talk about that with men. What I teach women is start that. If he won't start the conversation, you start the conversation. Here are my life goals. I want a family with kids, grandkids, a giant family, right? My wife, when we met, said 10 kids, Adam. I want 10 children. I said, I will try as many as we can get. And she was very clear. And that was one reason I married her very quickly, was because she was so clear on what she wanted. I said,
Nice.
I can do that. We will work together as a team. Women who are very clear will filter out men very fast. But you will also find some of those men who are they're just under the surface. They're afraid of what women want. They're not bad men. They're not even weak men, but they don't know what women want. So they're trying to be completely kind and soft and fun and just not scare you off. If you tell them, I want a man who agrees with this goal in life, who's going to help me meet it, a man who has these values and lives to them, and this is what I want. Are you that man? If women can be that upfront like that with men, they will help, number one, filter out bad men, help, number two, filter out weak men, and number three, they will bring up and encourage those men who are right there on the edge, who don't know that that's what women want from them. Number one thing, women out there, if you want a good husband, start talking to men and asking them if they are even good husband material. Don't wait 8 years to find out.
Great. But there is one follow-up question. I know this is something that is happening. Women can say they want this. They want man with a high status man making this figures, that figures, whereas they might not actually be that. Right. And there's a difference between me stating I want some like a model versus where I'm not in shape. How can that work? So what would that advice also? Because I think this advice should also, there should be some advice going back to women as well, as to how to be realistic, understanding what they want, and then also communicating that you want this kind of a high value man with these principles.
Yeah. You'd be shocked how many women who are good and calm and not anxious and not insecure, women who are good and calm and secure, most of them are not listing out, he has to be this tall with this many figures in his salary with this. They're listing out, just like I did, his life goals, how driven he is to accomplish them, what his values are, and does he live them consistently in his life? And then, yes, if he has a good job, or if he's aiming for a good job, wonderful. If he has he's this tall, or he's this tall, women will usually, those are tracked, but women are usually looking for the quality of the man first. Women need to be doing that. And if they find themselves defaulting to these, it's because they don't actually trust men to be of quality. So now they have to just look at his core features to be a piece in their life that makes their life easier. That's usually the answer. You'd be surprised how very few women are actually rating men that way, except when they get on the internet, they're really loud, and that's what men are waiting for. So a few, there are some minority of women who are out there unreasonable, but the most of them are looking for that quality of man.
Nice. I mean, we've covered a lot, Adam, today, and I really appreciate you, because I know this conversation can go for 2 other hours, because there are so many things that we can actually talk about, and possibly we can definitely explore round 2 of this. But I really, really appreciate you taking your time out, joining us on the show, and sharing these practical tips that I'm sure will help a lot of listeners out here in India and other parts of the world as well.
Thank you for having me on. This was wonderful.
Awesome.